couple of years ago, I was staying out in Los Angeles, and I was crashing on my friend David Weinstein's couch, and he has these proclivities for things he watches, let's put it that way. He handed me a DVD, a burn, and all it said on it was, "I am a sex addict." So back home, a few days later, what I ended up watching was this fascinating, freshly filmed hybrid biographical nonfiction and fiction film about this guy named Caveh Zahedi, and I've never seen anything like it. A couple of days later, I was on the subway riding home, and I looked up, and there he was sitting across from me on the train, on the F train, and so I just sort of got my nerve up, and I went over to him, and I started chatting with him, in my own awkward way. I just sort of said, so do you have anything in the pipeline? And this is a guy, he's put out quite a bit of stuff. He's a very well-known in the independent film scene. And he just sort of said, yeah, I got stuff in the pipeline. And indeed, he does have something in the pipeline, which he premiered down in South by Southwest. It's called The Sheik and I. I spoke with Caveh when I was down there, and I was at the premiere, and this very explosive Q&A that followed it. And it's very controversial, and we talk all about what happened. So back in a moment with that interview. So this is Adam Shartoff with Filmwax Radio at South by Southwest, and we're talking with my guest today, Caveh Zahedi. It's good to finally sit down with you. I definitely kind of was thinking about jumping back a little bit in time and trying to get the backstory a little bit, and I know some things, and you could fill in gaps, but I almost feel like we should get right into the new film. And you had such a very singular Q&A and lots of
you were there.
Strong, yes, I was. Thank you. And a lot of strong reaction to the film, which I guess probably wasn't a surprise, but just a little backstory. The movie is called The Sheik and I, and it's your first film in about 7 years, is it?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's well worth waiting for. It's about, you were contacted by the Art Institute, please correct me.
The Sharjah
Art Foundation, excuse me, okay.
Yeah, Sharjah is one of the Emirates.
They contacted you to create a work of art which was subversive in nature. You pressed them to tell you whatever was off limits, whatever were the things that you couldn't explore. They gave you a few ground rules finally, and one of them was not to make fun of the Sheik in it and to disrespect the Sheik in any way. Your instant reaction was, can I make fun of the Sheik?
Right.
A little bit? But even then, you were very blatant and clear that you were going to be taking their request and being subversive about your approach.
And the Sheik finances the biennial.
The outcome of which was unacceptable to them, and they then demanded not only for you to that you were not going to be part of this biennial, but that in fact they wanted you to stop. Threats came and legal action. It almost seems like it could have been built into the whole commission itself. Like, who knows where that begins and ends.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I missed our last attempt to do this was because I had shown the film test screening, and I'd shown it to a Muslim filmmaker named Parvez Sharma, who's made a film called The Jihad for Love about gay Muslims. Mm-hmm. And he was a great guy, really sweet guy. I didn't really know him, but I invited him. And he said he loved the film, and he was very supportive, but he said, you realize that there are people in the Muslim world who are going to try to kill you if you release this as is, right? Just want to make sure you know that. And I was like, well, really? I was hoping that wasn't true. He says, yeah, you and your family are really in danger if you don't change things. And he was saying, don't do it for me. I don't need you to change anything, mm-hmm. but I know the Muslim world really well. I know that area, and I really think that you don't realize what the consequences are. And it was like really disturbing conversation, Mm-hmm. And I was just like trying to process it, and I was just kind of like really, I just had to lie down, and I just like fell asleep. My body just shut down. Mm-hmm. I was really scared, about it. And he offered to sit down with me and go through it and tell me exactly what was offensive and why, and help me try to find solutions to the problems.
Is it possible that as a Westerner, am I watching it, my assumptions about what would be the most sensitive areas of the film might be completely different than...
It's possible. I don't know what your assumptions are.
Well,
and I still don't know what all of the things are. But,
mm-hmm.
He told me the choreography scene, for sure, and also the Theo Van Gogh clip. He said you could get killed over that one.
Mm.
So, my wife is, would really like me to
mm-hmm.
to make some changes to it. And, I'm just trying to find a way to do that doesn't make the film worse.
Yeah, so it's very stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to describe a little more about the film?
Well, when they made this commission, since I didn't know anything about the place, I really had a hard time coming up with a an idea that felt like it would be appropriate or true or viable. And so my idea was really just to go there and just sort of like just poke around and see where the fault lines are of their, of the rules. Because, for me, subversion is like you find the lines that you're not supposed to cross, and then you cross them. And that's and my idea was I would cross them or just push them a little bit, not to get banned. I didn't want to get banned, but just enough to sort of see what was sensitive and what was interesting to like look at. And you don't have to poke very hard or very very long to find them. And it was really clear that there was this, they have these guest workers who have basically no rights, almost no rights. And it's 90% of the population is these Indian workers or Pakistani workers.
Right.
And they live in terrible conditions, and they can't bring their families with them. Yeah. And our driver, the guy who picked us up at the airport, was one of these guys. And so immediately, I asked him if he would be in the movie. And then when I found out about his situation, that he had a son in Pakistan that he couldn't live with, that made me sad as a father myself.
Sure.
And so quickly that became sort of an area of interest for me, like this human rights for the Indian workers there issue. And then very quickly it became clear that Islam was at the center of this whole place, and it was very religiously conservative emirate. And it was clear that that was another place where people were very worried and anxious, and it seemed like an interesting thing to look at. And I'm really interested in God, actually, and religion, and it was interesting.
One of the running themes among
my
films,
work.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was interesting to sort of explore that, and I was really trying to understand what was good about it and also what was not good about it, and to sort of look at it. And very quickly, people were very freaked out.
Like some of the people that you developed relationships with there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, people who worked there.
When you were there,
Yeah.
right? As well as maybe...
people on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just everybody.
Everybody.
basically. Okay.
And so the film quickly just became about the conflict we were having with all these people who were trying to stop us from making our movie. I had no idea, but I knew there would be conflict along the way, and that would be what the film would be about.
Right.
And that's what it was about.
So, again, the movie is called the Sheik and I, and it's premiering at South by Southwest. And the filmmaker is Caveh Zahedi, whom we're talking with right now for Filmwax Radio. And one of the things I'm interested in is, from the point of view of, let's say, the Sheik's Foundation, it's like the moment I saw after watching the film, I thought smokescreen. Like they're attempting to promote themselves as westernizing or becoming more, progressive. Thank you. And in fact, it's a smokescreen, and that's not remotely what they have. They send you. You're dealing with these very sort of young, almost like hip people who are reaching out to you of all filmmakers.
Right.
It just didn't make sense.
Right. I mean, I think basically they're trying to buy their way into the art world and into respectability and into being like a player in the big leagues.
Right.
And I think what they don't understand is you can't just buy that with money. There's certain values that go along with that, like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, tolerance.
Right.
And they don't have that.
Yeah.
So they're sort of trying to buy their way into something which they haven't earned. It's kind of like a blue blood club that at a certain point, like rich people were trying to get into the big clubs, and now of course all you need is money. But there's a time when you needed like the bloodline. You needed to be an aristocrat.
So do you think at the heart maybe they just thought, well, they were just gonna give him, we have the money, so we'll just pay him to do what we want him to do.
I think that's how it works. I mean, they still have the biennial, and they pay all these artists all this money to come there, and everyone needs money, and nobody wants to bite the hand that feeds them, so people don't object. They've got this new Guggenheim there, they've got all these art organizations, and no one is speaking out against it because everyone profits.
Sure.
By not speaking out against it. They have the Abu Dhabi Film Festival, the Dubai Film Festival, and those festivals are not going to show cutting edge work. They're going to show work that is considered okay, but they want to give the appearance that they're really liberal and open, but they're not.
Right.
And this film proves that they're not, and the whole fiasco of what happened proves that they're not. And yet, instead of adapting to the world, they're trying to, just bury the thing that shows that they're not that.
So you screened the Sunday evening. You had your premiere
Yep.
here at the convention center, and were you prepared? Were you thinking, "Oh, this is the reaction that you did have," which we'll get to in a moment, I guess. But were you surprised by that in any way?
I was surprised by the intensity of it.
Were you?
I mean, I've been screening it. I've had test screenings, work in progress screenings for a few months, and I've seen very strong reactions, angry, violent reactions before. And I'm always trying to address them in the new cut in some way, and I'm trying to make it a little less offensive. So I thought I had addressed a lot of the concerns already, and I think I have addressed a lot of them, but there's still more to be addressed, I guess. And also just, it just boils down to some people are just going to hate it.
And
what it
they'll be the most
represents.
verbal of all, of course.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, you're going to get callers.
Yeah. I mean, there's this guy, Thom Powers, who he is?
Yes, of course. Sure.
And he's programming now Stephen Colbert's film festival. Stephen Colbert started this Montclair Film Festival thing.
Right.
And so I submitted the film to them thinking that would be a good fit. I thought Colbert might like this. It seems kind of
It's
up his alley.
subversive. He's somewhat subversive.
Yeah, it's subversive, comic,
Yeah.
religious. It's got all those kind of themes in it. And Thom Powers, the programmer, sent me a really angry, patronizing, condescending email encouraging me to withdraw the film from South by Southwest, saying it was reckless, unethical. And apparently I'm finding out that he's been sending these emails to everybody he can, trying to basically bury the movie. Like he's taken it on himself, his own crusade to censor the movie. And this is
He doesn't sense the irony.
He doesn't seem to. And this is a documentary programmer doing a really supposedly progressive film festival with a progressive figurehead. The Colbert Festival.
Okay.
And yet here he is doing exactly what the Sheik of Sharjah are trying to do, which is bury something, and has no respect for freedom of expression at all.
Right. And it would seem almost unfortunate to me that in the end of the day, your film ends up getting as much attention it does, not off of the merit of of the content of your film and as the craft of it, but because it's controversial, and that so easily a filmmaker like yourself would get possibly accused of trying to be outrageous for the sake of being outrageous, which is not really what's going on. And if you see the film, and if you know your past films, that's hardly it's one of the last things you should be accused of. I can think of several other things. There's a moment is it The Bathtub, where, and it might be my favorite moment in any film you've done, where you don't actually hear the criticism, but your response to it is. Yeah. So do you mean narcissistic in the pejorative sense of the word?
In the pejorative sense? Yeah.
Which for me kind of sums up the films. We'll be back in a moment with Caveh at South by Southwest.
Plot for a biennial will consider the production of art as a subversive act.
We were interested in treason, collaboration, and conspiracy.
So I had an idea, which was just go there without an idea and just wing it, improvise it.
So we're talking with Caveh Zahedi about his new film, The Sheik and I, which is premiering at South by Southwest this week. And I was asking you during the break, are you ready for a battle? Because it seems like there are a lot of forces that are making this difficult. Like I said, also you might get accused of trying to create more hype for your film, which is totally false.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not above that, but but mostly I'm just trying to get the film seen by as many people as possible.
I mean, you never thought about just doing Sex Addict 2 and just phoning it in?
Great idea.
Now, it seems like maybe.
No, I'm just amazed at the amount of reactionariness in the system. I mean, the film is an attack on, a certain sense of power and compliance with power.
Yeah.
And, you have that everywhere, not just in the Emirates. You have that here, too. And, to me, Thom Powers is like the Sheik of New York.
Yeah.
And he's arrogantly, I think, and smugly decided that he knows what's what and what's right and what's wrong, and he's going to, make sure that, that work doesn't get seen. And I believe that all work should get seen, and people should make up their own minds about it, like it's not his fucking business.
Right.
Yet he's making it his business, And, he doesn't want to show it at the festival he's a programmer at, fine. But he doesn't have to like try to get everyone else not to show it. And so I think that's got to be spoken out against. I mean, I think it's censorship.
Mm-hmm. Well, Filmwax Radio is against censorship. I know that's controversial to say, but absolutely against it. So welcome back. You can come back on the show anytime. Now, also was during the Q&A, one young lady, I want to set this kind of got a little bit of my dander up, and that was that she said that you were insensitive, that you went to the country, you should have embedded yourself in the culture and learned about the culture more. And I thought, well, first of all, as you said it very articulately, that's not necessarily the responsibility of an artist or a filmmaker. Especially, one should remember that they commissioned you, not the other way around.
Right.
They commissioned you, and it was to do something subversive.
Yeah.
So why would you feel compelled to go in there and become, embedded in that way,
Yeah, I mean, the peace scene is around, it's basically around colonialism. Obviously there's a colonialist history to all this that people are all trying to, tiptoe around. And, I mean, to me it's just absurd. First of all, you can't embed yourself in the culture. It's a foreign culture. It would take years and years. Take a lifetime. You have to be born into it to really understand it. Mm-hmm. And to pretend that you could understand it is already, hubristic. Mm-hmm. You're never going to understand that culture. Mm-hmm. And all you can do is speak the truth of your own perception of things. Mm-hmm. And, it's not your job to be sensitive. I mean, that's just such a PC liberal kind of thing. It's like saying, "Oh, there's a black." I mean, when I was a kid,
It would whisper the word black.
I just remember that. But I remember, my parents were always black people, you really have to be, they've been really badly treated. I remember once I was a kid, I lived in a white neighborhood, and I really never saw black kids. Mm-hmm. And when I see a black kid walking towards me, and I'm like, this poor black kid, I'm going to give him a really big smile. I mean, I'm like 9 or 10,
Sure, yeah.
And trying to make him feel better. And so I give him this big smile, and he immediately stops. He grabs me and says, give me your money. And he takes out my pockets, mm-hmm. pushes me, hits me, and leaves. And it was just here's a sucker,
right.
Yeah. And it was
there's the lesson.
It was
That's a good story. And we like black people on Filmwax Radio also as well. I should mention. But you're right about your reaction there, and it wasn't your. It's impossible to, as you said, and you're never going to please people anyway.
I mean, I think it was the same woman or someone else was saying, the ugly American.
Right. I think you're right.
And yeah, I mean, you go to these countries, you're rich, they're poor, you're entitled, they're not.
Right.
You can lie about that and pretend that's not true and do what? Give money to beggars,
Yeah. But not only that, let's say all these people are aspiring for better lives. It's not like there's a judgment about people that have more. It's a matter of how you treat yourself and you treat other people when you're there. And that's what I was going to say, and I kind of almost forgot, that you couldn't have been more sensitive. I mean, yes, American and Western kind of sensitive, and maybe you didn't see the forest for the trees on some level. I don't know. I can't say. But you definitely were treating people with great amount of respect on a one-on-one level.
Yeah.
What you didn't treat the government with the same amount of respect or something. I don't know what they were trying to criticize. I really don't get it.
Well, to be fair to Thom Powers, I mean, the reason he's mad about the film, I think, is he's really worried that people's lives are in danger. Mm-hmm. And I think for him it's an ethical thing. He's on an ethical crusade to protect people from this dangerous, unethical person who is me. Mm-hmm. And what he doesn't seem to understand is that those people live under a repressive regime that needs to change. And what's his solution? Just let it keep being repressive? Mm-hmm. Where the only way things are going to change is by shining a light on the system and what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. And the film is ethically complicated because there are people in the film who ended up in the movie without really realizing where this could go, mm-hmm. and it went in a certain direction, and now they're in it, mm-hmm. and they're not necessarily comfortable being in it, mm-hmm. and yet I just recorded what actually happened and what actually goes on there. I'm not making stuff up.
Right.
And so there is a real, question ethically, is this okay or not? Mm-hmm. And to me, neither choice is ethically pure. I mean, to bury the film, mm-hmm. is just to give in to the forces of the bullying forces of censorship and of power there, and not to do your job as an artist and even as a person who speaks out against injustice. Mm. But to show the film is also to endanger lives, possibly. You don't know, and you can't know. The thing for me is if somebody crazy decides they want to hurt somebody, that's not the responsibility of the person who pissed them off. It's their responsibility. Like,
Right.
You don't, if you, like in the Arab Spring, somebody like decides to fight the police might shoot a gun that hits somebody else, But
Whose fault is it?
Yeah, it's not the guy who tried to fight the police. It's the policeman's fault for shooting the gun, And Thom Powers is blaming me for the fact that there's a reactionary system in there that is, he thinks might do something. He doesn't know. I don't think he knows anything about the system, really. He just has these presuppositions, these prejudices, really. And, I think it's arguably, racist to assume that the Sharjah government will not honor its pledge to make sure no one in the film gets in trouble, because there was a legal settlement, and that's what they said.
Yeah, we should mention that in response to some of the, I assume, legal actions was this in response to somebody get certain threats, or was you're hiring an attorney in response to legal action from them?
Yeah.
Sharjah?
There were no threats ever,
Okay.
except they threatened to put me in prison if I went back there to attend the biennial that I was invited to, and they also threatened to send a cease and desist order if I didn't destroy every single copy of the film in existence and sign a contract saying that I would never show any of that footage ever. Ever.
Right.
And I refused to do that. Like, they can't tell me what I can and can't do. And so we got into a legal battle, and they agreed to a settlement saying I had the right to show the film wherever I wanted to, except there. And I said, okay, you don't have to show it if you don't want to, but I can show where I want to. And also that I insisted that they include a clause saying that nobody in the film would get in trouble, because that's what people seem to be worried about. And insofar as they might have some just cause for concern, I wanted them to have some kind of legal protection.
So what about like those that operate outside of sectarian, or rather outside of like the government and the laws of the government?
You mean like Muslim fanatics?
Muslims? Yeah, well, those guys.
Well, those guys you can't really
That
control.
do exist everywhere in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Right.
anybody can get offended at anything at any time and decide they want to kill somebody.
I'm just wondering where the level of concern is for your own safety. And your
Yeah, I mean
family's.
that's where I think it would be. I mean, I don't think the Sharjah government's going to kill me. I think it would have to be an angry Muslim extremist who thinks that, or probably hasn't even seen my film, but has heard from somebody else that it's offensive to Islam and blah blah blah.
Yeah, which you kind of illustrated that very thought. Usually, some of these things are the result of just even ignorance of the actual specific genesis.
I mean, I can't imagine that any of the people who were protesting Salman Rushdie's book had read it.
We know that.
Yeah, because it's hard.
Yeah, you have to read a lot.
You have to be well read.
Yeah.
And if you were well read, you probably wouldn't try to kill him.
Good point. Thanks so much for coming on, and I appreciate it. And you have how many more screenings of the film left?
Just one more.
Just one more?
Tomorrow.
Okay. Have the subsequent Q&As been as
The second Q&A
hot?
Was much more civil.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People-
Well, you were also prepared too.
I was more prepared, but also the moderator did a better job of reining in the crazies.
Yeah. We can leave out the name, I guess, of the last very 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 talented
Very
talented creative
Very talented
director.
creative
Yeah.
director,
Yeah.
moderator.
Thanks a million, and we're going to have you back on soon, when we're back in Brooklyn, and when we know what the future of the Sheik and I is in the States and in New York.
Okay, cool.
All right.
And I promise not to fall asleep.
Well, I'm glad you came on here.
Okay, my pleasure.
All right.
This country has its rules.
Can we speak about
I'm gonna confront you. But you want creative hammer, and I won't do it.
You are talking about the fate of Sharjah.
If the movie is shown publicly, they'll get in trouble here.
You just can't do that.
I don't think we can screen it, Caveh.
Not only are they not going to show the film, but they are sending a cease and desist order.
Blasphemy here is beyond serious.
In a place where there's no freedom of speech, you cannot go and say there's no freedom of speech.